Welcome! In this video, we'll take a look at the Ant-Man trilogy to see what we can do with just a few tweaks. Because this series, despite its flaws, does have potential. It just needs a loving touch to elevate it from, in my opinion, some of the worst the MCU has to offer, into something meaningful. We'll go movie by movie, then wrap up after with my bird's eye view notes. And hopefully by the end we'll have something more cohesive and engaging than what we got. Let's dive in. Oh, and spoilers for these movies. Just FYI. Starting with the first movie, obviously. Change number 1. Scott is allowed to be a criminal. One of my least favorite lines in the entire MCU is from Peter Quill at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, and it goes like this. So, what should we do next? Something good? Something bad? A bit of both? Why do I hate this? Because the Guardians never do anything bad. Ever. They are always heroic from start to finish. Yeah, they break the law a little, but they are by no means the rogues they cosplay as, because the MCU is afraid of having flawed characters. We can't have the Guardians do bad things because they need to be good guys. We can't have Captain Marvel cause the Kree society to collapse. She has to destroy a world mind, then they have to have a civil war that makes them collapse. We can't have blonde Black Widow be taken in by propaganda and thus ideologically inclined to work for the Red Room. She needs to be under mind control. We can't have Scott be a criminal like in the comics because people need to like him. These are not so subtle methods writers use to mimic growth. They're half measures. They dilute our heroes by truncating their emotional journeys. Because if these characters aren't ever bad, what's the difference between how they start and end? If Scott steals from the rich to protect the poor at the beginning of this movie, then steals from the rich to protect the poor at the end, then there isn't much of an arc, is there? If I had the final say, which to my understanding MCU writers rarely do, I'd let these characters own their flaws. In this case, I'd let Scott just be a skilled thief who did it for the money and who comes back for the money and/or thrill. That way, when he becomes a hero, we see a difference, instead of more of the same. Change number 2. Scott's past should create more friction between him and his ex-wife. This change is integral to this revised trilogy. Scott's main conflict should be between what he's done, what he needs to do, and what he wants. What he's done is crime. My version wouldn't just have the one either. He'd be a career criminal. What he needs to do is be a superhero. Duh. And what he wants is to be a father. But in this version, the first two aspects conflict with the second. Because of Scott's past, his ex-wife doesn't want him near Cassie. She only begrudgingly allows visitations for Cassie's safety. This creates conflict for Scott. He needs to be a better man in order to gain unfettered access to his daughter. But, unfortunately for him, we have change number 3. The movie ending with Scott being punished for his heroics. At the end of the movie, Scott battles Darren Cross in Cassie's room. Because of him, his daughter is put in danger, albeit unintentionally. That should cost him. Much like Spider-Man, I'd like to see a price to Scott's heroics. Yes, he protects his daughter. Yes, he becomes a better man. But in doing so, he loses the ability to have Cassie visit. Because on a go-forward basis, he can only see Cassie at her mom's house when her mom is home, no exceptions. This is a great motivator for future movies. We want to see Scott reunite with his daughter fully. We want to see their relationship grow. We're rooting for him. Change number 1. Scott isn't seeing his daughter. We can have the same sequence at the beginning of the movie where Scott and Cassie are hanging out, except this time, at the end of it, we cut to Scott waking up and realize it's a dream. Now I know that's depressing, but we don't have to stay low. He can still get a sequence where he hangs out with Cassie under supervision, as long as there is emphasis on said supervision. We need to see the consequences of movie 1 spill over into 2, so we can maintain the through line of this trilogy. Change number 2. Ghost is Cassie. That's a clickbait title, so chill. What I mean is that Scott should perceive Ghost as Cassie. There are clear parallels between the two in that they both have lost time with their fathers. Scott should see the path Ghost walks as a potential future for his daughter and thus aim to save Ghost. That's something I assumed the movie was gonna do, but it just didn't. The climax of this movie should be a longer fight between Ghost, Scott, and Hope. Ghost should be trying to kill them, while Scott is trying to reach out because he sees his daughter in her and wants to save her. Meanwhile, Hope is trying to kill Ghost because... Change number 3. Hope needs something to do. After the first movie, Hope is relegated to just being cool and sometimes a little snarky. She has nothing going on. Let's fix that. Put a pin in Hope wanting to kill Ghost. We'll circle back in a sec. Outside of Ghost, Hope will also have smoke for Hank. Why? Let's have Hank actually be the reason for Ghost's origin. Instead of firing Ava's daddy for being a bad guy, have it be that Hank was legit just jealous and wanted all the glory. Have Hank discredit Ava's father out of spite, and have that revelation drive a wedge between him and Hope. Said conflict will aid in giving these two more depth, as Hank admits that he was a bad person and has been working to redeem himself, and Hope learns that her family has even more secrets than she realized. So why does she want to kill Ghost? Because of our second change to Hope. In the original version, both she and Hank want to bring back Janet. But in this version, Hank has moved on and given up, but Hope is obsessed with bringing her back. In this version, Hank is reluctantly helping Hope with the project to breach the quantum realm in order to protect her. But we can have the two reconcile at the end of the movie when he tells her that even though he might have helped just for his daughter's safety, he always believed that if anyone could find a way, it'd be her. After Ghost is defeated, Scott can be the one to stop Hope from killing her, with an impassioned speech about how they have to believe in one another in order to hope for a better future. He can even make a pun using her name. And our movie can end on a happier note than the first. Scott's company is on its feet, the Pyms are reunited and helping Ghost stabilize, etc, etc. Then we get the post-credit scene where the Pyms get dusted. Oops! Change number 1. Keep the story from the trailer. If you go back and watch the Ant-Man 3 trailer, you'll be confused, because in it, Kang sounds like he's making an entirely different deal with Scott than in the movie. Trailer Kang offers Scott time back with Cassie, supposedly through time travel, but in the movie, no such line is spoken. Scott works for Kang entirely involuntarily. Again, this is a character being prevented from having flaws. Scott isn't allowed to work for the villain willingly, because then how will people know he's a good guy? Quick fix, make the movie align with the trailer. In this version, Scott would be even more eager to cut a deal, considering how much time he's lost with his daughter. Speaking of, change number 2, Cassie Lang. It's fine that Cassie is resentful of her lack of a relationship with Scott, but I think there's a better way to portray how that trauma affected her. Instead of having her be a typical rebellious teenager, have her be clingy and scared. Show her as being afraid of taking action, afraid of losing her dad, afraid of being alone. Also, let me cook on this one, we'll circle back. And side note, Cassie's powers should come from the quantum realm directly, instead of from a suit. She fell in without any protective gear, so just have her DNA changed. That'd be cool and would distinguish her from all the other ant people. Change number 3. Fix MODOK and Kang. MODOK doesn't have to be a joke just because he looks funny. That's honestly kind of a lazy way of doing his character. This is a man who tried to kill Cassie when she was 6. Change his awful joke of a design, make him scary, make him a body horror creature, make her scared of him because of the trauma he inflicted on her, and have her arc in this movie be about gaining the courage to fight MODOK and any battle by herself after encouragement from Hope and or Scott. Also, no redemption for MODOK. It was done terribly in the movie, just have him die as a devotee of Kang. As for our resident conqueror, 2 changes. 1, he kills Hank. Michael Douglas wanted to die in the movie, so we're killing 2 giant birds with 1 boulder. 2, no power suit. I want this Kang to be low tech. Why? Because that, in my opinion, makes him scarier. He didn't conquer the quantum realm because he has the best technology and is big strong. He did it because he is a demagogue who inspires devotion. Thanos was the Titan. Kang should be the politician. Have the people who serve Kang not just be soldiers, but zealots. In fact, change number 3. Janet Van Dyne should be a villain. My version of Janet is an acolyte of Kang, but unlike the original, she did not see into Kang's mind literally. Instead, she saw into it over however long they were together through listening to and watching him. And she, like many others, has become taken in by Kang's allure. So she hatches a plan once back on Earth. one where she uses Cassie and Hope as unwitting pawns to find a way back to the quantum realm, kickstarting the movie in a scene similar to what we actually got. This change actually sets up even more drama for Hope, as she'll inevitably clash with her mother. I have no interest in a redemption arc here either, so this will end with Hope battling, defeating, and sparing Janet, only for Janet to blow herself up in an attempt to take her daughter with her in the name of Kang. She'll fail obviously, but again this will show just how dangerous Kang is. This, plus Hank's death, will give Hope plenty of delicious characterization. She can actually have something to do and feel in this movie instead of just being there. Change number 5. Cassie and Hope get back to Earth, Scott stays in the quantum realm. This one's obvious. I don't know if studio interference prevented this or not, but in my version this just has to happen. Scott's whole journey has been about fighting to be with his daughter while fighting to be a hero, but ultimately he has to sacrifice his time with her in order to protect her. It's an ending, it's poetic, it's moving. It is Ant-Man. Alright, let's get to a few notes. Number 1, the Pyms in this are far more complex than originally, and thus have a more interesting story. In terms of the original trilogy, ask yourself, did you care about the Pyms? What did Hank or Hope have to do in the second movie, or even the third? What about Janet? What was her personality? Those questions are hard to answer because the writing makes them hard to answer. These people need to be defined so that we can attach to them, because in my opinion, you never want your audience to be indifferent. Even dislike is better than disinterest. Every single time. Number 2, the entire series should be about Scott and Cassie Lang. Their relationship is the crux of this trilogy, so the through line should always rely upon it. Because despite all the powers and aliens and punchies, the series still needs an emotional core, and this bond between father and daughter is it. Number 3, Cassie and Kang both needed to be established. We need reasons to be excited for them both. These changes hopefully do that. Making Cassie a quantum-altered being gives her more intrigue on the power front. Giving her an arc of growing into the beginnings of a hero starts her out on the emotional front. I'd love to see this version honor her dad's memory and even maybe reunite with him down the line. As for Kang, he needs to be different from Thanos but just as threatening. So I wanted to position him as this cult leader who doesn't even need to fight because he has an army willing to fight and die for him. Anywho, that's all I had for this one. Like and subscribe if you're interested in this type of content, as I'd like to do this again for other series, even outside of Marvel. Until I get around to that though. Cheers.